The love between Vietnamese women and American veterans who visited Vietnam before 1975 is not rare. There are people who have only been together for a short time. There are couples who are married and have children, but it is extremely difficult to reunite. There are also veterans who do not know that they have left a child in Vietnam. John McKenzie is one of those cases. During his time in Vietnam, he met and had feelings for a Vietnamese girl named Ngo Hoang. This was a love story like many others, where two souls met briefly amidst the chaos of war. John didn't expect that their brief encounter would leave a lasting impact on both their lives. Their relationship was brief, but it resulted in the birth of a daughter, Hàng, a daughter John never knew existed. After John returned to the United States, he set up a new family and started a new life. The years passed and life moved forward. However, the memory of Ngo Hoang remained in his heart, and he always wondered about her and the child he never met. Although John tried to reach out to Vietnam to search for her, the search was in vain. His inquiries were unsuccessful, and over time, he assumed that he would never find her. On the other side of the world, Hàng grew up with one burning question: who is my father? She grew up in the absence of her father, with only the faintest of memories from her mother, who never spoke much about him. All she had was a photo of John McKenzie from the time he spent in Vietnam. This was the only connection she had to the man who was her father, but it was enough to haunt her thoughts every day. She wondered where he was, why he left, and why he never returned. As Hàng grew older, the question of her father's identity became her greatest mystery. She knew she had a father, but there was no information, no records, no answers. For many years she searched in vain, asking anyone who might know something about him, but her search was fruitless. Despite the challenges, Hàng never gave up on finding him. She continued to look for answers, hoping that one day she might learn the truth. As the years passed, Hàng never stopped wondering about her father. Who was he? Why did he leave her and her mother behind? These questions consumed her thoughts, and she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of loss. Even though her mother loved her and did her best to provide for her, Hàng always felt incomplete. There was something missing, something she couldn't name: the love of a father. Hàng decided to take matters into her own hands. She began a relentless search for her father. She spoke to relatives, friends, and even strangers who might know something about him. She reached out to anyone who could help her uncover the truth about her father. Despite her best efforts, Hàng was unable to find any concrete leads. She was left with more questions than answers, and the pain of not knowing her father only grew deeper. Hàng refused to give up, however. She knew that the only way to find peace was to locate her father and finally learn the truth. In a world without social media or easy access to information, Hang's search was difficult, but she was determined. She tried reaching out to various organizations and individuals who might be able to help locate her father. But still, nothing. The years went by, and she began to lose hope. But fate had other plans. In a stroke of luck, Hàng decided to take a DNA test, hoping that modern technology might be the key to solving the mystery of her father's identity. The test results came back, and to her surprise, they connected her with John McKenzie. After 45 long years of searching, Hàng had finally found her father. The connection was undeniable, and it was the breakthrough she had been waiting for her entire life. After 45 years of separation, Hàng and John McKenzie were finally able to meet. It was a moment neither of them had ever expected, but it was a dream that had finally come true. The reunion took place at the airport, where Hàng and John finally came face to face for the first time. For John McKenzie, the meeting was surreal. He had never known that he had a daughter in Vietnam, and the realization that he had a child he never knew about hit him hard. As he waited for Hàng at the airport, he was filled with a mixture of emotions: excitement, nervousness, and disbelief. The years of wondering about her had finally come to an end. Now he was about to meet her. When Hàng walked toward him, John immediately recognized her. She looked so much like Ngo Hoang, the woman he had once loved. His heart swelled with emotion as he saw her face for the first time. After all these years of wondering, he was finally meeting the child he never knew he had. Hàng, on the other hand, was overwhelmed with emotion. This was the moment she had been waiting for her entire life. She had spent decades wondering about her father, and now, after all the searching and all the waiting, She was standing face to face with him. She rushed into his arms, tears streaming down her face as she held him tightly. It was a moment of pure joy and relief. "I can't believe this is happening," Hàng said, her voice breaking with emotion. "I've waited so long for this." John, equally overwhelmed, held her tightly. "I never thought this day would come," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But now that you're here, I can't believe it." For both of them, the moment was one of pure joy. After so many years of longing, they had finally found each other. Their reunion was a moment of healing, and it was just the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. The reunion didn't just stop with John McKenzie and Hàng. For John, this was the beginning of something much larger. The chance to meet not just his daughter, but a whole new family. As the reunion continued, John had the opportunity to meet Hang's children, his grandchildren, and even his great-grandchildren. This was a family he had never known existed, and yet here they were, ready to embrace him. The emotions were overwhelming for John. He had spent so many years imagining what his life could have been like if he had known about Hàng, and now he was witnessing it firsthand. As he looked at his grandchildren and great-grandchildren, John couldn't help but feel an immense sense of gratitude. This family, which had been a mystery to him for so long, was now a part of his life. For Hàng, the experience was equally emotional. She had spent her entire life feeling incomplete, wondering where her father was and why he was never there. Now she was not just meeting her father, but she was meeting an entire family that had been lost to her for decades. Though Hàng wasn't fluent in English and was a bit shy in front of the camera, her joy was evident. Her bright smile and the tears in her eyes told the story of her happiness, a happiness she had never known before. John was thrilled with the newfound connection. "It's like finding a missing piece of myself," he said. "Now that I've found you, I feel complete. My life feels full in a way it never did before." He was overjoyed to finally be a part of Hang's family, and Hàng was equally happy to have him back in her life. They began sharing photos and stories, learning about each other's lives, and making up for lost time. Despite the years of separation, their bond was quickly growing stronger. Hang's children and grandchildren embraced John as their own. For them, this was not just about meeting a long-lost relative. It was about gaining a grandfather, a new source of love, and a new chapter in their lives. John often spoke to them on the phone and shared pictures, keeping in touch with the family he had never known he had. The McKenzie family in the United States was just as excited to welcome Hàng and her family into their lives. John's son Liv and his grandchildren made plans to visit Vietnam, and the connections between both families deepened. For John, this reunion had not just brought back a daughter, but it had also opened the door to a new and vibrant family that he could now be a part of. The reunion with Hàng was just the beginning of a new journey for both her and John McKenzie. After the emotional first meeting, they made plans to spend more time together. John's visit to Vietnam was on the horizon, and Hàng was already planning how to make the most of the time they had together. For John, this reunion brought a sense of healing he had never anticipated. In his life, he had never known the joy of watching his daughter grow up or the challenges of being a father. Yet now, at the age of 70, he was given the chance to reconnect with his daughter, meet his grandchildren, and become a part of their lives. This reunion filled a void in his heart that he had long since thought could never be filled. "I've missed so much," John shared, "but now that I've found you, I'm not going to waste any more time. We're going to make up for lost years." For Hàng, the reunion was just as meaningful. She had always felt like something was missing in her life, and now with her father back in her world, she finally felt whole. She was no longer searching for answers. She had found them. The pain of growing up without a father, of wondering who he was, had finally been replaced by the joy of knowing him. For Hàng, it was a dream come true, and she was determined to cherish every moment with her father, her grandchildren, and her entire extended family. As the months passed, John and Hàng continued to grow closer. They shared stories about their lives, their families, and their experiences. John took great joy in learning about Hang's life in Vietnam, and Hàng loved hearing about the family John had built in the U.S. Their conversations were full of laughter and tears as they discovered more about each other. John's new role as a father and grandfather filled him with a sense of purpose. He had spent so many years regretting the time he had lost, but now he was determined to make the most of the time he had left. Hàng was proud to have her father by her side, and she knew that the bond they shared was unbreakable. "I don't need anything else," John said, his voice full of emotion. "I've got my family. I've got you." As they moved forward, both families made plans to visit each other more often. John's family in the U.S. eagerly anticipated their next visit to Vietnam, and Hang's family planned to return to the U.S. as well. Their relationship, once a distant dream, was now a reality. They had found each other against all odds, and nothing was going to tear them apart. The reunion had not only healed the wounds of the past, but it had also given them both a new outlook on life. For John McKenzie, it was the final chapter in a long journey of loss, and for Hàng, it was the beginning of a new life with her father and his family. As the years went by, the bond between father and daughter grew stronger. They continued to share stories, visit each other, and create new memories together. What was once lost was now found, and both John and Hàng knew that they had finally found what they had been searching for their entire lives: a family.